Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Create and Consume, a podcast about what we make, watch, and buy in the era of digital content. I'm your host, Austen Tosone. Today, we are going to be diving into one of my favorite seasonal rituals, which is the beauty swaps that we make ahead of spring. And honestly, as the weather starts to warm up, we just had the first 80-degree day here in Hoboken and New York over the weekend. And when I tell you the people were out, the picnic blankets were scattered across Sheep's Meadow, people were at the waterfront. It was just the day that I feel like the city truly comes back alive. And it's something that I look forward to every year, especially coming off of what was, I think, a pretty snowy and like cold winter for us just compared to recent years. But anyway, so as the days start to warm up and the days get a little longer, it's the perfect time to do a refresh with our skincare and makeup routines. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing some of my go-to product swaps that help my skin transition smoothly from winter to spring because I do make some changes that I feel help. Plus, I'll also share a few spring beauty trends that have been identified for the season and what I think of them. So whether you're just looking to lighten things up or get your glow back, shake up your routine, this episode has you covered. Before we get into all things beauty, let's do a little create and consume. And if you're new here, first of all, hello. Thank you for being here. As the title of the show might suggest, the podcast is all about things we create and consume. So at the top of each episode, I like to share what I'm creating and consuming each week. And as a reminder, you can also let me know what you are creating and consuming as well. So as for what I am consuming this week, first, I'm so glad that Andrew and I were here this past weekend. Sometimes it's tempting to fill your weekends with plans, and I literally just needed a weekend with nothing on the agenda for us to decide at the start of the day what we wanted to spend the day doing. So because it ended up being so nice out, we were able to take advantage of the warm weather. And Andrew actually had off last Friday. I feel like his company, that's very rare to have a weekday holiday off. So we decided to take full advantage of it and head over to Brooklyn to do some brewery hopping. I used to live in Williamsburg, so the L train is very familiar to me. So we decided to start off first by going to Evil Twin, which I just realized I looked back in my camera roll and I found the photo of Andrew and I from the last time we were there, but we haven't been there in 6 years. And it's such a beautiful space. And this one actually technically is in Queens. And I was like, how is that possible? Because it was off of the L train. It's off of the Halsey Street stop. So you do have to take the L train, about like halfway into Brooklyn, I would say. But I looked on Google Maps and literally the border of Queens is like on that block. So on one side of the street, you're in Brooklyn, and on the other side of the street, you're in Queens. So that one, I guess, is technically in Queens, but it's a beautiful kind of like glass house looking building. And then they also have a bunch of picnic tables and food trucks and things like that for when it's nice out. It's definitely one of the most spacious breweries in the city, I would say. We headed there first, and then we made two more stops along the way, basically taking the L train all the way out and then working our way back towards Manhattan. So that was our first stop. And then we actually got there a little bit before the food trucks opened and we needed to eat lunch. So Andrew just went on Google Maps and found a restaurant called Pawn, I think it's pronounced, because it's pawn like bread. And it ended up being this awesome wood-fired pizza restaurant. It literally looks like it's in the middle of just industrial Brooklyn. Like you're walking down the street and you're thinking, there's a restaurant here? There's no way. And then you turn the corner and there's this delightful little restaurant. So I got a margarita pizza with prosciutto, and then we hopped back on the L train and took it to Jefferson Street. And we went to a new brewery that we've never tried before, Kings County Brewers Collective, and this one is in Bushwick. Really enjoyed that one. I got a flight there, and then we got back on the L and went all the way back to Bedford Avenue in Williamsburg, and we hopped off there and went to a place called the Test Brewery. And I need to know if anyone who's familiar with Brooklyn knows the bar that used to be there, because I know I've been to this spot before, but I can't for the life of me remember what used to be there on like Metropolitan and 4th. And this was the brewery where I broke out the Uno game that I brought in my purse with me. And then we headed back to Hoboken and we got so many steps in. It was such a nice day. And sorry, did I say that I created a reel about this experience? That is what I created. That's what I meant to start with. So I shared a little reel just showing our little Brooklyn brewery bar hop. So I posted that on Instagram and TikTok. I will link it in the show notes. And I love doing stuff like that, especially because it gets me out and about in the city. And especially if it gives me a chance to bring Andrew along, who can kind of, help me film a little bit here and there throughout the way. And as far as what I'm consuming this week, I just finished our April book club pick, I guess, although we will be discussing in May. And we read The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. So this was my suggestion, and this went totally undisputed. I put it out there and everyone was like, great, let's read that. And for context, usually with book club, there is a lot to choose from. Most people will throw out a handful of ideas. There are some people who are just like, send what you think looks good. I'll read pretty much anything. So this time my book got chosen, and also chosen with, again, no arguments. So I was like, oh my God, the pressure's on. I really hope this is a good book now that we are all reading this, and it was a unanimous decision to read it. The way I pitched it to book club, I think maybe helped a little bit. It's kind of like half Devil Wears Prada, half National Treasure, if you will. So the backstory is this young girl ends up basically becoming the assistant to Deanna Vreeland, who was the Vogue editor back in the 70s. And she is helping set up for the Met Gala back then, which is also coming up in May. So we're actually going to meet the day after the Met Gala to discuss the book, which I think is great timing because then, of course, we can discuss the Met Gala. And I'm going to be doing some Met Gala inspired episodes coming up, so be sure to stay tuned for those. It's a dual perspective book. So one side, you're following this girl, Annie, who's Deanna's assistant. And then on the other side, you're reading the perspective of Charlotte, who is a curator for the Egyptian collection at the Met Museum. And she actually got her start back in Egypt doing digs and visiting tombs in the 1930s. And while she was in Egypt, she uncovered this really rare artifact, and then it shows up at the Met kind of unexpected. So it brings up a lot of questions for her about her time spent in Egypt and everything that's happened since then. And then the night of the Met Gala, a rare piece of art gets stolen, and then Annie and Charlotte kind of unexpectedly have to team up to track it down. I really enjoyed this one. I gave this a solid 4 out of 5 stars for me. I found some parts of it to be a little less mysterious and a little bit easier to kind of guess or piece together, but that didn't take away from any of the fun that I had reading this and envisioning them like running around the Met after hours and then even going elsewhere. I won't spoil the whole book at this point. And I really fell in love with like a lot of the characters, so I definitely would recommend that one. With that being said, let's get into today's episode topic. And I wanted to start off by asking myself, what are the spring beauty trends for 2025? Because I feel like there are some that inherently recur over time, but I also feel like there are some that just depend on more of a general trend curve of beauty, just meaning things that have been popular for the last like 3 years or so. We kind of reach a point as people where we start to crave something that is the opposite of that. So for example, if people are super interested in lip liner for a couple of seasons, they might start to then venture into more smudged or blurred lips later on. And we see similar trends in fashion as well. Hemlines fall, hemlines rise over the years, and sometimes it's reflective of the times, like the economy or what's going on socially in the world. And other times it's a reflection of like, oh, we've been doing the long hems for this long, now we want to try the short hems, and things kind of just become naturally cyclical. So everything that feels old can become new again at a certain point. To give us a baseline to work off of, I did a little Google search for spring beauty trends for 2025, and I found an article on Vogue that listed several of them. So I can link this Vogue article in the show notes. And I pulled out just a couple of my favorites to talk you through. So number one is pastel colors, which I feel like this is the fashion equivalent of florals for spring groundbreaking. Like, of course, pastels come about again in the spring. Now that I've done my color analysis with my friend Sarah, which was in a video on my YouTube channel from last year, I can also link that in the show notes. I discovered that I am a deep autumn, but I look at the spring color palettes and it definitely leans a little more into the pastels. So of course that kind of makes sense, especially looking at things like Easter. It kind of becomes a reflection of nature, especially I mean, right around here, we have so many trees blooming right now. It is so delightful to just walk through the neighborhood and look at all of the cherry blossom trees and also look at, I think, what are pear trees, my mom was telling me. And also just start to see like tulips and daffodils and things like that pop up. And, when you're pulling from like the yellows, the pinks, the lavenders, all of those colors feel very springy and fresh, especially coming off of the deeper, darker colors of winter. So, yeah, I'm here for a little bit of the pastel colors. I'm here for more like light, shimmery, bubblegum pink lip glosses and blushes. I'm here for a little wash of a pastel color, like on the eyelid or with an eyeliner. I think it's a fun way to add color in. It's not something that I would really wear year round, but I think this is a good time to break them out. Okay, another spring beauty trend was red light therapy. So I am here for this one. Red light therapy, a couple of like the key benefits of it, as far as what I have learned from talking to dermatologists and doing my own research, are basically to reduce inflammation and boost collagen production, which can help your skin appear brighter and clearer if you struggle with acne. Either at the end of last year or the beginning of this year, I was very kindly gifted a red light mask from the brand Current Body. I have been using it on and off for a couple of months now. I know you need to use it pretty consistently to really see results from it. So I want to try to set up like a little tracker for myself so I can truly track like I used my red light mask 4 times a week and here's what happened. Right now, I've kind of been picking it up on an as needed basis or thinking of using it before certain big events and things that are coming up. For example, I have a pretty big photo shoot at the start of next month. So this is a good time, I think, for me to be using the red light mask more consistently. Now, 2 little things that I will call out about the red light mask, because obviously, you want to think about the benefits as well as the risks associated. Basically, just to use it in small doses. What I like about my Current Body mask is when you turn it on, it stays on for 10 minutes and then it automatically turns off. So it seems to vary depending on which red light mask you have. If you're using an at-home one, some of them are as little as 5 minutes, some of them go up to 20 minutes. For me, I feel like 10 minutes is a good sweet spot for me because 20 minutes feels like a lot. And I also want to call out, it's a good idea to limit use of red light therapy before sun exposure because it can make your skin, more susceptible to those UV rays. In the same way that I don't typically use retinol or exfoliation in the morning because it can kind of strip my skin in that way, I wouldn't use the red light mask and then like go to the beach. So I just wanted to share some call outs about that. I will link the mask that I use in the show notes just in case you want to look into it further. And Current Body did give me a discount code to share, which is just my name, which is Austen. Another beauty trend in this Vogue article is what they're calling powder 2.0. I'm going to read this one because I read that and was like, what the heck does that mean? Cheek color has often been a toss-up between glow or matte. Cakey matte options have dominated in recent years, but this spring we're embracing the best of both worlds. The heavy matte moment is phasing out as we lean into a more fresh, approachable skin moment, Jai Garan says. Wait, did Jaleesa contribute to this article? Sorry, I'm just realizing my friend Jaleesa, who's a makeup artist, is quoted in this. Go Jaleesa, I love this Vogue mention for you. She says the goal is always fresh, hydrated, and healthy skin, whether that's through skincare or lightweight complexion products, but the goal can be realized either way. To achieve this glowy base with a blurred finish, reach for new age powders atop a creamier makeup base. Okay, so what I think their suggestion is to layer your blush, which I have been doing personally for several years now. I don't know if I would call it really a new spring beauty trend. I see what they're getting at here, though. They're saying put a cream blush first and then you can layer it with something maybe with a little shimmer to it. I personally only own, I think, maybe like 2 shimmer blushes. Otherwise, I do typically prefer more of a matte blush look because I can always accent it off with a little bit of highlighter if needed. Okay, yeah, I'll give them that one. Why not? It's not easy to come up with new names for all these things, especially if you are a writer or editor who is working on so many different articles on a given day. Okay, another trend, return to the sculpt. So they're talking about basically using depuffing and sculpting face tools to basically, snatch the face, look good. I am definitely here for this trend. I mean, I still have the Amazon ice roller that I purchased from 2022, which I can also link in the show notes if you're interested. To me, this is the skincare equivalent of doing something to make myself feel a little bit more put together, the same way that I would with hair or makeup. For example, if I woke up late and I was rushing and I needed to run out the door, I would probably do a slick back ponytail like what I have right now, just to keep it simple and look more put together. On a similar note, I am not likely to leave the house completely barefaced. If anything, I'll put in like a clear brow gel, put on a little lip gloss, and maybe just touch up some acne spots with a concealer if needed. So I think of it more so in a sense like that, where I'm just doing a little something on my way out the door to make myself feel more put together. And again, to me, this is the skincare equivalent of it. So whether that is actually using the ice roller for 15 minutes in the morning, or whether that is putting on some under eye patches that have been in the refrigerator, or using like a jade roller or a gua sha to give myself kind of like a mini little face massage. I think all of those things fall into this category. And I think at this point, if you are a beauty girl, you probably already have like one of those four things in your possession. So this is a trend you can participate in without having to go out and buy something new. And I'm here for that, especially after what we discussed in last week's episode. Okay, another trend, smudged eyeliner. So I'm a little scared of this, possibly because I am currently in a Gossip Girl rewatch and I've made it to season 2 where Jenny's makeup is giving raccoon. But the reason I like smudged eyeliner is because it's something that you can do that does not have to be perfect and can be intentionally a little grungy, a little messy, a little edgy. And honestly, I'm here for that. I might try it with more like a brown eyeliner pencil to start out, but I kind of think that could end up being a cool one. Another trend, and I think this is the most unique one on this list that actually kind of made me excited, that got me going, oh, I wonder what that is. Should I try that? That is watercolor blush. So what they mean by that is a very, very diffused blush look with soft edges all around. And I am here for this application method. I'm here for this process. I love sometimes just that subtle light wash of color just as much as I also love layering on blush when needed. I feel like this is great for, again, those really light makeup days, or just to give the focus back to some other part of your makeup. So if you keep it light on the blush front, maybe you are going heavier on the bronzer, or maybe your eyes are going to be the focus, or you can do a really bold lip. So I actually really liked the idea of that one. Another trend coming up is full body care. Not really surprising to see this on the list, especially coming off of winter where we were wearing long pants, we were wearing long sleeves, and in a sense now we kind of get to shed some of our layers. So products for every part of the body, including neck, arms, legs, etc. I want to talk about the neck for a second because this is something that up until a few years ago, I feel like I was not paying as much attention to, but your neck should be treated as an extension of your face. I forget where I saw this, and of course, I didn't think to pull it up for this episode, but there was a photo that I saw a few years ago that literally like shocked me into paying more attention to my neck, which was a picture of a woman who was very old, like in her 80s or 90s, I want to say, who had applied sunscreen to just her face and applied moisturizer to just her face, ignoring her neck. And the difference between the two was staggering. Like it gave me a jump scare, truly. And ever since I saw that photo, I have been making sure to intentionally, whenever I'm applying moisturizer to my face, to bring the product down to my neck. Whenever I'm applying sunscreen, to really get the neck area behind the ears and everything, like all the way under the chin and the chest. The Current Body red light mask that I mentioned earlier, I think they also even make a neck attachment, and I'm not going to buy that because the Current Body mask is very expensive, by the way. Had I not been gifted it, I don't know that I would have personally invested in it unless I had already tried it somehow and had seen crazy instantaneous results. So I just want to be very clear about that. I don't want to pressure anyone into doing anything. I'm just kind of running through these, obviously, for fun and for education purposes. But I do believe they make a neck attachment, and I think that should be like more heavily advertised on their website if I were them. So yeah, on that note, when you're applying moisturizer, just bring a little bit down to your neck, okay? You don't have to slather the whole thing, especially if you're like dressed already or wearing a shirt that you don't want to get messed up, but like bring some down to your neck, okay? And then as far as arms and legs, obviously, sunscreen when you're leaving the house and those body parts are exposed to potential sun damage. And then also in the shower, I like to sometimes use a body scrub. Right now I have the Way one in there, and you can use this for your scalp as well, but it just smells so good. And I especially like to use that on like my elbows and my knees, especially as my skin is coming out of the winter months and readjusting to having like a bit more, humidity in the air going forward where things are a little less dry, just to kind of help ease the transition. I can link the one I like in the show notes. Again, that's a slightly like bougier option, and I don't use it every day. I kind of just use it as needed when I feel like my, skin could use a little extra love. And also, there are plenty of affordable body scrubs at, the Targets and Amazons of the world. And then also, even just applying lotion right out of the shower, I'm currently at the point, I don't know if anyone else is here yet, where my whole body feels itchy right now. And that is a direct result of the fact that it's getting warmer out. It typically happens to me going into the winter months and then also coming out of the winter months. This is the time where my legs just feel scratchy and itchy. And for that, honestly, my favorite moisturizer is Curel, which I love because it's a drugstore option and it comes in a giant bottle. Like, I've had this bottle for quite a long time and I don't even think I've made that much of a dent in it. That's one of my favorites to use. I can link that in the show notes as well. Okay, and then the last trend I wanted to mention from this Vogue article is monochrome eyelids. And I am so here for this. And I actually think this is a trend for this season. Also, I'm reaching into my free bin here for just a moment because I just got sent these absolutely stunning eyeshadows from Urban Decay. I'm showing them in the video if you're watching on YouTube. The packaging is so gorgeous. I mean, this is going to look incredible just sitting on my vanity. But what I love about these is they are a single swipe of color. These are not maybe as much monochrome just because they have little bits of glitter in them. I can see that it's a bit more iridescent, but the fact again that it's like one product. This, I love the CoverGirl eyeshadow sticks. Like, let's just keep it simple, It doesn't always have to be a full-blown ombre crease cut eye situation. Now that we've run through some of these fun trends, I wanted to talk about a few swaps that I typically make in my makeup bag, so to speak, for the spring season. So I think the number one thing for me is that my heavier full coverage foundations, they start to kind of take a back seat, okay? This is where the skin tints come out to play. I just want to feel lighter. I want to feel like I'm shedding layers in a sense, and that even comes down to my makeup. I will absolutely still break out a heavier foundation if I have like a photo shoot or an event or a special occasion that calls for it. But on the day to day, I am not trying to have a full caked on face of makeup. I'm really here to try to let my skin breathe, to embrace my natural beauty, especially in this season of rebirth, which is spring. Wow, I'm being so poetic right now. And I'm also wearing a top that kind of makes me look like a poet. I'm renting this from Newly. But yeah, for me, the heavy foundations are the first thing to kind of move to the back of the vanity. And again, I think if you tend to gravitate towards a heavier foundation, maybe try like just putting it out of reach for a little bit and see how you feel swapping in more like a skin tint or a CC cream. Because for me personally, when I sit down at my makeup vanity, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Like, I would not move once I sit down to do my makeup to go get something else. It's just like whatever's in front of me, that's what I'm using because I'm already sat here and ready to do my makeup, and I'm not going to delay it by chasing around the apartment looking for various different beauty products, because there are beauty products actually in pretty much every corner of this apartment, if you were wondering. There's some in this corner, there's some back in that corner, obviously a ton in the bathroom and at my vanity. I wonder if when Andrew first started dating me, he realized that one day he would just be surrounded by beauty products to the point where it would literally feel like he was living inside a Sephora. Probably not. Okay. On the same note of swapping out heavy foundations, this is also where I tend to, in general, there's a caveat to this, but in general, swap out foundation brushes and base product brushes for either using a beauty sponge or honestly just applying product with my hands. I was watching one of Olivia Marcus's recent YouTube vlogs. She is also a Hoboken content creator and she's also a writer. I was watching one of her vlogs recently and I had to pause the video because I watched her take the It Cosmetics CC cream, which is a product that I have, had and used for years. And I've tried the brush method applying it, I've tried the sponge method. I literally had to pause because she took the product, pumped it into her hand, and just spread it all over her face with her fingers. And I was watching it and it looked amazing. I was like, I have that product. Like, should I be doing that? And so I've started trying it and I really feel like that is maybe my favorite way to apply the product. And one thing to know about pretty much all cream beauty products is that if you warm the product into your hands at first, it makes it a little bit easier to blend because you're kind of adding that human warmth to it. It almost does like melt a little bit extra than it does just when it comes in contact with a brush. It just like melts a little bit easier, more so than it does when it comes in contact with a damp makeup sponge, which it will melt in a little bit, and much more so than when you go in with a brush, just because the brush is going to be the most matte, dry thing that you use to apply your products in general. And I even did it today. And if you're watching on YouTube, do I look beautiful? I don't know. I think my makeup looks really good today. And I applied the CC cream with my hands. I was so shocked by that. So it just makes me remember that that's an option and know that if I'm in a pinch or like if I'm traveling and I forgot certain brushes and things like that, to even just try going in with my hands. I think also for like a cream highlighter, that works really well as a way to apply it. Some people will like take a cream stick product, go in with a brush, and then apply it on. But if you really want that extra bit of glowiness and you want it to just like melt into your skin, using your hands can actually be kind of a hack for how to do that. And I go back and forth about this. Also, I just discovered the It Cosmetics concealer brush. I was just sent it in PR. And I tried that with the concealer this morning. I used the Tower 28 Serum Concealer, and that it just like looks amazing. And I'm like, wait, this brush might just be my new favorite thing. So again, that's not like a hard and fast rule, but in general, I am more likely to apply with a damp beauty sponge for more of that like dewy finish, or to honestly even use my hands to help the product truly sink into my skin. Maybe that'll inspire some of you to try applying products in different ways than you normally do, and I'll try to link as many of the products that I just listed in the show notes as I can. Okay, here's another one that I have been obsessed with lately: swapping in brown mascara for black mascara. And my current favorite brown mascara is CoverGirl. I am currently forgetting the name of it, but it comes in like an ombre tube. And it's still a very deep shade of brown. It looks like there is something on your lashes, but it's just a little less intense. It's almost like a little more diffused, kind of along the lines of that watercolor blush I talked about earlier. Obviously, not in color or texture, but just in feeling. It's like we're lightening up overall. So, that is one of the things I like about the brown mascara. Also, I have brown eyes, brown hair, brown eyebrows. Brown mascara, you would think would fit in with all of that for me. I've really been enjoying swapping in the brown mascara occasionally. I believe I just have the one from CoverGirl, but if you have a favorite brown mascara, let me know. And I would say the same goes for like the eyeliner situation as well. Loving a brown eyeliner right now compared to black, although I'm wearing black today because some of my eyeliners are very dried out right now, and I didn't want to chance it. I just wanted to do something that I know worked. I kind of mentioned this already, but I did jot down, more heavy matte products, swapping them out for dewier ones. And I think we talked about this in terms of base product, but I would say the same goes for like bronzer, blushes, highlighter, setting powders, all of those things. And as Vogue pointed out, you could also go and create powder 2.0 and layer powders on top of cream products. So if you're looking for some transitional makeup, maybe that is a good way to go. Again, on kind of a similar note, swapping out your typical lipstick for a plumping lip gloss or a lip balm, just to give the lips a little bit more of that fresh feeling. And you can even do this just by using the product in a slightly different way. So for example, today I first went in with my Makeup Forever lip liner. Then I took a Lancome lipstick, but instead of just like taking it and full on applying and like coating my lips and really digging in the product to get the pigment there, I honestly just took it and started lightly tapping it across my lips. And then I did that. If you're watching on YouTube, I just, mushed them together. And then I'll go in with a little bit more in any spots that are needed, but then that's it. Just keeping a very light wash of color on the lips and then going over top with a gloss. And today I'm wearing one of the Lawless Beauty strawberry lip glosses. I forget if it was strawberry shortcake, strawberry I don't even know what the other options were. Strawberry shortcake, strawberry cheesecake, maybe, strawberry custard. One of them might have been strawberry popsicle. Now I feel like I'm just completely making this up, but believe me when I tell you, it is a strawberry one. I will link the exact one in the show notes. Something else that I personally have been loving lately is instead of feeling the need to do both contour or bronzer and blush, to almost find like a taupey or mauvey blush, depending on your skin tone and what colors you typically gravitate towards, to apply in kind of one swipe to that area instead of feeling the need to separately apply both blush and contour. And again, this is for like everyday no makeup days for me. I did not do this today, but the product that kind of inspired me and that made me think of this swap is honestly the new Tower 28 Get Set Matte Blushes. So this is a matte powder blush, but what I like about it, so this is a matte powder blush, and my favorite shade that I tried from this range, because I was very kindly gifted all of the shades for this product when I went to the launch event here in New York, is a shade called Samo Spritzer. And if you look up this shade, like this is the exact color that I'm talking about that I feel like can accomplish the look of what you want with contour or blush, but kind of all in one. So I am definitely going to be using this bronzer quite a lot this year, I would say, for those no makeup days or for days where I'm just trying to use like as few products as possible. And the other great thing about this product is because it is based on their Get Set setting powder, you can honestly kind of skip setting powder in that area because it's already applied. It's already like built into the formula. They actually created these blushes because the founder was like, I wonder if our Get Set setting powder can hold color. And it turned out that they could. So they ended up creating this product. Another one that I had written down is swapping out the full brow pencil situation for more like a tinted brow gel. And, you know, I have been in a clear brow gel mindset lately, but I do kind of want to explore some tinted brow gel options. You know what I've actually found myself missing lately is Glossier Boy Brow. Yep, I think I'm ready for the boy brow resurgence. And Glossier is honestly kind of having a resurgence themselves right now, which I personally am here for because I feel like I became beauty aware at the height of Glossier, and I just have so much of my personality, I feel like, connected to that makeup brand for many reasons. All of that being said, I think I'm ready for my tinted Glossier Boy Brow to make a return. And then the last thing on my list is generally moving away from deeper berry toned lip colors into peaches and light pinks. Like I said, trying that Lawless Strawberry Gloss that I feel like is very pink and poppy and fun. It just definitely feels more like spring to me. Okay, and then I feel like when it comes to spring, we can't not talk about spring cleaning. So I actually already did a whole How to Spring Clean Your Life episode a few weeks ago. I can link that in the show notes if you haven't listened to it yet. However, just two kind of like big tips when it comes to decluttering beauty. If you feel like you want to go through your collection, make room for some new things, get rid of some other things, the three criteria that I use to declutter a product are basically, is it expired? Is it empty? Or have I not reached for it in like a substantially long amount of time? Usually I try to think, when was the last time I used this? And if I can't remember, that's probably a sign that I haven't used it in a while and that maybe it should go. And then as far as expiration dates, those start from when you open the product. So I feel like that's always important to mention and good to know. And you can find the expiration date on the little bottom corner of the product. There should be almost like a mini jar that says like 6M, 12M, 24M. That's how many months the product will be good for after you open it, assuming that the product was, you know, sealed and kept out of sunlight and like in a good temperature and all of that kind of stuff. And then also obviously getting rid of anything that's empty or that maybe you've just been holding on to, but you're really at the end of it and there's no need to keep the product around. And once you have your decluttered products, you can actually recycle some beauty products. I just wanted to shout out two different programs that I'm aware of that you can recycle products at. So Sephora and Nordstrom both use this program called TerraCycle. You can Google TerraCycle and I can link it in the show notes. basically look up which products are eligible to be recycled through that and also find any drop-off locations. And then Ulta beauty stores also have something called the beauty drop-off, which is another way that you can recycle products. And to round out this episode, I thought it would be helpful to share some tips for how to make the most of your products. And by that, I mean, if you do find that a lot of products seem to be expired or that they just feel weird or that maybe you can see formulas separating and things like that, just over the years myself have gone through a lot of trial and error with products, and I know what can help make a product last as long as possible and stay good for as long as possible. And also, obviously, in my career as a beauty editor and writer, I have had the privilege of interviewing many beauty experts over the years, from hairstylists to manicurists to makeup artists, who generally tend to also have some good tips for stuff like this. So just to start off, I would say track, if you can, what works for you and what doesn't work for you, so you have a reference point over the years. Now, as you guys know, I have my crazy beauty product spreadsheet where I actually do track every single product that I receive in PR. I put whether or not I'm testing it. I put how many of the product I've received, like if I've received several shades of a color cosmetic product. I mark down whether or not I'm testing it, whether or not I'm giving it away. And I also try to write down a note of just like at least my first impression of it, or overall whether or not I love it or whether it didn't work for me. I just think this is such a helpful reference point because it helps you shop smarter, in the sense that you can say, oh, it's been like 3 years since I used this concealer. Like, I should buy it again. But if you look up your notes and you say, randomly started breaking out, and then you get rid of it and you're like, whatever happened with that? And then you can go back and see, oh, I think I thought that this product was breaking me out. Like, I think I had isolated it to realizing that this was kind of the main concern or the main cause of why I was breaking out. It's just like helpful to know stuff like that, because you may think you love something or see someone talk about it on Instagram and the nostalgia kicks in and it's like, yeah, whatever happened with that? Maybe it just didn't work that well for you, but it's been so long you can't remember it. Maybe that's just me because of how many products I try, that sometimes I see something and I'm like, yeah, what did I think about that? Like, did I actually like it? Did I not like it? I have no memory. But honestly, it can be really helpful because sometimes when you find a product that doesn't work for you, if you can figure out, like, if it's a new ingredient that you've introduced that your skin's never really encountered before, or maybe the product contains like a fragrance and you're sensitive to fragrance, it's just helpful when you try things to write down like what you think the ingredient or the irritation factor came from, so that you can not just avoid repurchasing that product again if it didn't work for you, but also keep an eye out for similar products that maybe contain those ingredients. I remember I was so excited to try Fenty Skin when it launched several years ago, and I got whatever the toner was and I put it on my skin, and immediately my skin got like so red and angry at me, and I was like, what even is this? What's going on? And then I think I just realized that the ingredient witch hazel is something that, my skin is a little more sensitive. It can't really handle a ton of witch hazel, which is a very strong and potent ingredient. And that essentially taught me to avoid products with witch hazel going forward. And I have not had the same reaction or an issue since. Another tip for making the most out of your products is to look up the products on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, whatever, and watch tutorials from different people to see how they do things and how they utilize their products. I already shared an example of this in this podcast episode where I said I was watching Olivia's vlog and I saw her apply the CC cream with her hands. I'm like, it never would have occurred to me in a million years to do that. I don't know why it wouldn't have occurred to me, but it definitely would not have. And now I feel like I've unlocked this whole new way to apply a product that I already love as it is, but now I feel like it can look even better, which is just great. Also, I like trying to create content where I can show the different sides of different beauty products and tools. I actually did a reel somewhat recently where I showed how I use my Conair Infinity curling iron, which is my drugstore curling iron that I've had for years and that I love, to create what I would call like a salon worthy blowout. So the way I tried to like frame that reel was get salon worthy results for under $30 at home. And hopefully that tutorial can be helpful to people who have a curling iron with a clamp at home, but have never really like picked it up before or used it in the way that I use it. And maybe it'll save them some money because they feel like they don't have to go get a blowout, or maybe it will convince them that they don't need to buy a $600 hair appliance. Look, I'm sure the Dyson Airwrap actually is incredible, but again, like most people, not really in a position to drop $600 on a curling iron. Again, maybe that video will catch Dyson's attention and they'll gift me the Airwrap just so I can try it and maybe I'll fall in love. But as of right now, I have a system going with my Conair curling iron and I'm good with that. But I will link that reel in the show notes if you want to watch it. Wow, this is going to be a stacked show notes. Hope you guys are checking out those links because I'm spending the time putting them all there. Okay, and then the very last thing is also to look up tips for how to make certain products last longer and also how to avoid contamination between products. So, one thing that can get easily contaminated is skincare products, especially those that don't come in, I guess, what dermatologists would call kind of like sanitary packaging, mostly referring to products that come in jars, right? Like if you have a jar of moisturizer and you just used your hands to apply a serum all over your face, and then you take your hands still covered in the serum and dip them into the jar of the moisturizer, you are in a sense contaminating the moisturizer with the serum. Another way to avoid this is to get some of those little mini spatulas. A lot of jar skincare products actually do come with them. I actually think I have one at my desk. Hold on. I do. I have one right here. So this is the little mini spatula, if you're watching on YouTube, that comes with the Laneige lip sleeping mask. I remember when I had my wedding nails and they were like really long gel extensions, I couldn't just like dip my finger in the jar and apply my beloved lip mask on my own in that way. So I was turning to the spatulas at that point. And yeah, honestly, that's a more sanitary way to do it. Honestly, if you have any beauty product that you feel like is fading fast on you or the formula is breaking down or something, you can just Google like how to make nail polish last longer or how to make foundation last longer. I think reading up on the tips from the pros is the move here. So things like, again, storing the product away from direct harsh light, storing the product at a certain temperature, or honestly, also even like shaking the product before using it. I was interviewing my friend Tabby for a birdie story that I just did about base coats, and Tabby is a manicurist based in the United Kingdom. And she said that like fully shaking the base coat, like, upside down all around, giving it a really good shake helps the product like settle better and will even make it better when you apply it. And that's something I've literally never done before. And I do at home nails basically all the time. So now that I know that, I feel like I am armed with this new knowledge for how to make my at home manicures, be better and last longer. And that's just because I took the time to ask an actual professional, hey, how do I make this look better? How do I make this last longer? All right, you guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed chatting beauty with me today. I could obviously go on and on, but we have reached the end of the episode outline. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today and spending part of your Thursday or whatever day you're listening to this with me as always. As a reminder, you guys can support Create and Consume for free by doing any of the following. You can leave us Apple and Spotify ratings and reviews. You can like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. You can follow along at Create and Consume Pod on Instagram and TikTok. You can send this episode to a friend who may enjoy it. And as always, don't forget to check out createandconsumepodcast.com for episode recaps and more. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.